Hey, what's going on? Today we are going to talk about whether or not the rich pay their fair share. Okay, it's a whole party out there that's running on right now. They're going to make the rich pay their fair share, and I know there's people that are voting for that party just because they think, well, the other side gives tax cuts, and this side's going to make the rich pay the fair share. And honestly, I didn't know. That's not why I vote for somebody, or it's not one of the top priorities why I choose to vote or vote against somebody. But I figured, well, I should probably know that. So let me do some research. So I took a couple days here and I educated myself. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about federal income tax, because anybody that is an employee that works and gets a paycheck pays Uncle Sam. They pay the federal income tax. Not everybody pays state income tax because not all states have them, and some of them have flat rates. This, that. So for this video, we're talking about federal income tax. Do the rich pay their fair share when it comes to federal income tax? So what I did was I went to the IRS website, and I first thing I did was I looked at the tax brackets. Sure, we've all heard of tax brackets, but real quick education on that is there are 7 tax brackets that range from 10% up to 37%. Okay. Now, each tax bracket has a dollar amount. For example, the first tax bracket, which is 10%, you get taxed 10% on $0 to $11,000. Okay. The second tax bracket of 12%, you get taxed on the next amount all the way up to $45,000. So on and so forth, all the way up. So what I did was I took 5 scenarios, okay, of income. Is what I did. I looked at somebody that earns $35,000 a year and how much they pay Uncle Sam each year. $75,000 a year earner, 150, 250, and then an earner that makes $1 million a year and how much they make. So the $35,000 a year person falls into the second tax bracket, which is 12%. So they pay their share of the 10%, which is $1,100. And then they pay the remaining 12% of their income in the second tax bracket, which comes to about $3,980. Okay, so we're just going to round up moving forward for the rest of the video. Someone that earns $35,000 a year pays $4,000 a year to the federal government. So if you earn $35,000, you bring home 31. Keep in mind, you still need to pay state income tax if you live in a state with it, and any other corporate or city taxes or whatnot. We're just talking federal. But if you earn $35,000 a year, after the government gets their hands on it and takes their chunk, you have $31,000 left over. Next is the $75,000 person. This person now goes up to the third tax bracket, which is 22%. Okay. So they pay their share of the 0 to 11, they pay their share of 12 to 45, and then the remaining in that tax bracket. So someone that earns $75,000 a year pays $12,000 a year in taxes. Okay, so they 75K, you bring home 63,000 after the government, federal government, gets their hands on their chunk of your earnings. All right, so you go from 4K to 12K in taxes to the federal government. So let's go ahead now and look at the 150K earner, which this pushes them up into the fourth bracket, which is 24%. Okay, so if you earn $150,000 a year, you're going to pay $30,000 in taxes to the federal government. So if you earn 150K, you bring home 120 after you pay Uncle Sam. Okay, 250K puts you all the way up into the sixth tax bracket, which is 35%. If you earn $250,000, you bring home $191,000. Okay, so you pay $60,000. If you earn $250,000, you pay $60,000 and bring home $190,000 after you pay Uncle Sam. And the last tax bracket is 37%. And in this scenario, it's going to be someone that earned $1 million. So if you earn $1 million, you end up paying $330,000 to the federal government in income tax. $330,000. So if you want to look at the percentage of each, overall percentage that comes out, someone that pays $35,000, 11% of their income goes to the federal government. 75K is 16%. 150K is 20%. 250K is 24%, and 1 million you pay 33% of your income goes to the federal government. But what I went to look at next was like, well, how many, how much more times more does a rich person have to pay? So for example, if you're in the $35,000 a year, if that's what you make, would you say it's fair if the person that made $1 million paid 10 times more than you in taxes? 20 times more? 50 times more? The fact of the matter, it's 83 times more. It takes 83 people that earn $35,000 to contribute the same amount as one person that made $1 million. It takes 83 people. For 75,000, it's 28 people. For 150, it's 11 people. 250, it's 6, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a lot X more. So then what I looked at was like, well, how many tax returns are filed each year? Okay. And according to the information that I found, the IRS in 2023 processed 271 million tax returns and other documents. So I needed to find out, well, how many of that are just actual income tax returns? And the answer was that I kept getting was roughly around 162 million, about 162 million income tax returns. That doesn't mean that's total employers, because some people file jointly, married, things of that nature. But 162 million individual tax returns were processed in 2023. Now what I needed to know is how many of them said they made $1 million. And the answer to that was 1.4 million. 1,400,000 people in 2023 said they made $1 million. So what I did was I took $1.4 million and I multiplied it times 330,000, which is the amount in taxes that a person that made $1 million had to pay. And my jaw pretty much hit the floor here. And the answer is $462 billion. $462 billion, almost $500 billion. Now someone's going to say, well, there's tax write-offs and they use loopholes, and they find a way to pay less in taxes. Okay, so they use the loopholes. Should we take off $200 billion? So they only paid $262 billion to the government. But the flip side of that is, this is just a figure if everybody made $1 million. There's people out there that make 5 million, 10 million, $100 million. So the number, it's good where we say it is, okay? Because it's probably actually more when you average in the true 1%ers, which make more than $1 million a year. This is just capped at $1 million a year. If 1.4 million people that said they made more than $1 million only made $1 million, they paid $462 billion to the federal government. So the next thing I want to look at is, I found an article that was written in June, and it was from the National Tax Union Federation, or National NTUF NFT. It's linked in the description below. Okay. But basically what it says is that bottom 90% of income earners, okay, and in this article, they rate that as anybody that makes less than $191,000. So $190,000 or less, that's 90% of the population, okay? 90% of the population, $190,000. Well, they actually pay about 20% of all the taxes to the government. 90% only pay about 20% of all the taxes. It's actually 19.6, but again, we're rounding up. So then what they did was they took anybody that made $1 million, like I did in my research, and that ended up being 1% of income earners in America. 1% of income earners in America make at least $1 million, okay? But they pay 50% of all the taxes. It's actually 45.5, but again, we're rounding up. So 1% pays 50% of all taxes. 90% pays 20%. So that means there's a 9% left out there, and that 9% added to the 1% makes the top 10%. So the top 10% of income earners out there actually pay 80% of all taxes. Top 10% income earners pay 80% of all the taxes. So after doing that research, reading that article, and putting the pen to paper, which for some reason is fun for me, I came to the conclusion that yes, the rich do pay their fair share. And I plan on being rich, so I kind of hope that the party that wants to raise taxes on the rich does not get into power, because I plan on being one of those people one day. But anyway, so in my opinion, yes, the rich do pay their fair share. You can agree with me. You can disagree. You can do some research. You can do no research. You can leave a nice comment. You can leave a nasty comment. I don't care. I did the research on my own. I found the articles, non-biased articles, not government organizations, not left-leaning. It's not from CNN.com. It's not from FoxNews.com. Again, it's linked below. You can read it yourself. Go do your own research and make your mind up on what you think, whether or not the rich pay their fair share. But in my opinion, they do. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you later.